Hello everyone and welcome to Patrick's Basement. Glad you are back. Today's review is going to be really exciting. We're talking about the manufacturer Inart so often in the past, but without having a real point of comparison. We've already done numerous reviews of Asmus and of course Hot Toys, but we only know Inart from hearsay. That means now things are getting serious. We're embarking on another journey to Middle Earth, and we'll see if Inart is really as good as everyone says. I hope you enjoyed the review of Aragorn from the Fellowship of the Ring by Inart.
Oh my god.
Let's start with the packaging, which is grey and has a kind of fabric texture. At the top we see the Lord of the Rings logo in gold lettering. In the center we see the name of the figure we are talking about today, Aragorn, outlined in gold. Around it, also in gold, is the one ring with the well-known inscription, "One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness, bind them." And the special thing about it is that the whole thing can even be rotated. On the side we see the Lord of the Rings logo again in gold. Also in gold we see the name Aragorn on the back, and if you look closely you can just make out Aragorn's face. The packaging can be easily opened with the help of a magnet on the right side. Once we open the packaging we see our figure, which we will now examine more closely. At first glance something immediately catches your eyes. Aragorn is standing here rather headless. Now what's special about Inart figures is that the figure's head is always contained separately in a kind of glass dome. This is different from figures by other manufacturers, whose heads are already attached to the body. The exception is Gandalf the White by Asmus, whose head was also packaged separately. The method of attaching the head to the body is also different. In the past we are only familiar with heads being attached using a ball joint. Here we see that the whole thing is visually constructed somewhat differently, but is essentially serves the same function as a ball joint. It's very simple, just put the head on and you're done. And with that, our Aragorn is complete. Oh man, how long I waited for this figure! And finally I can present it! Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. And as I mentioned before, this is my first experience with Inart. When I saw the first published photo of Aragorn, I was blown away how close Inart got to Aragorn's face, or rather Viggo Mortensen's. But seeing a photo of a prototype is always different from seeing the final product. So my burning question was, does the final product look like it did at that photo? Well, to answer the question, I tried to recreate the photo as closely as possible. And when we look at both images side by side, it's clear that the final product isn't 100% identical to the prototype on the right. Of course, camera angle and lighting play a role, but despite that it's clearly visible that the hair on the right is slightly longer and darker. The beard appears fuller and also darker. Furthermore, the face is a bit narrow and the chin a bit more pointed. All of this might sound negative at first, and the last thing I want is to speak bad about this figure. Quite the opposite in fact, because Inart has delivered by far the best implementation of Aragorn to date, and that's something that will be hard to replicate. And that's incredible. There are actually two versions of this figure, one with sculpted hair and the other, as in this case, with rooted hair. Personally, I will always choose rooted hair regardless of the figure, as I find it make the figure looks much more realistic than sculpted hair. The only downside is that you have to check the hairstyle every now and then. With some figures the hair can sometimes look a bit puffy, but this can usually be remedied. If you need to fix your hairstyle, simply take some water and a brush. Gently brush your hairstyle with a damp brush. It's best to use tweezers to straighten individual strands. And you're done. Since we are talking about realism, we also have the option to move the eyes separately, which is an important feature for me. This gives us much better possibilities for creating more beautiful images and poses, rather than if the eyes were always looking in the same direction. All we have to do is remove the head again and align the two joysticks we see inside the head in the direction you want Aragorn to be looking. Then put the head back on and we are done. Let's talk about the clothing, and I will start with the jacket. Visually it really looks like it's made of textured faux leather, but it's really hard to tell what material it's made of. It's relatively thin and feels velvety. There are several seams visible all over the jacket, for example at the shoulders, across the back and on the sides. Of course you can take off the jacket if you like. All you have to do is remove the hands and bracers. Once the jacket is off, you have a much better view of the doublet and tunic. Now just put our hands back on and you're done. The doublet is brown and made of a slightly different, much stiffer fabric. What's really noticeable here is the weathering effect, which is particularly striking on the doublet. You can see the difference between the various shades of brown. This isn't just true for the doublet though. As you will see, this effect is used frequently on the other clothing items and accessories as well. I'm a huge fan of things like this. It simply makes the figure look much more realistic. Otherwise it would like the clothes were just thrown off the rack. Further up, the doublet is laced up. Aragorn's doublet appears to have been patched rather haphazardly. Seams are visible on front, and they aren't exactly even. Under the doublet is a grey tunic, which I don't need to discuss further. Let's try the jacket on again. We will definitely discuss this lovely little gem here, the Even Star. It originally belonged to the elven princess Arwen. The elven star symbolized immortality, but Arwen renounces immortality by giving up the Even Star for her love of Aragorn, and instead giving Aragorn to it as a symbol of eternal love. On his arms are the bracers that Aragorn took at the end of the film after Boromir's death. He does pay his respect to Boromir and symbolize his loyalty to the White City of Gondor. They are truly beautiful and well-made accessories. The bracers are made of faux leather and are each fastened with 2 straps. Everything is once again very detailed, from the 2 gold buckles to the lacing on the inside. On the outside, a tree is depicted in silver, representing the White Tree of Gondor. The trousers are black and made of the same stiff material as the doublet. This means I expect we will have some problems stretching the legs, as the trousers don't stretch very much. The boots look great and very detailed. They are made of a thicker fabric and are one piece. There are several lacing points across each boot. There is a seam along the side similar to the jacket. What I particularly like is that even the soles of the boots are dirty. Let's talk about mobility. The head can be rotated once around its own axis. Moving forward and backward is also no problem. The torso can be easily rotated left and right. Moving forward and backward works just as well. The arms can be extended by about 80 degrees. Forward extensions even reach 90 degrees and beyond. Bending the arms works perfectly. To my surprise, the legs can be extended forward by about 80 degrees. Bending them also works flawlessly thanks to the ratchet joints. While the feet can be moved, to be honest, I'm a bit hesitant. The boots fit very snugly, so I'm afraid that if I go beyond a certain point, a seam might tear, and that will be a shame. The figures are so well balanced that we come out without the base. Let's talk about the accessories. We have 9 interchangeable hands, a strong bow and a slack bow. Of course, there are arrows, we get 4. We also have a bedroll, a sword with a scabbard, a small knife, an elven knife with a scabbard, the shards of Narsil, a pipe, a belt, a quiver, a rolled up cloak, and last but not least, we have the elven cloak. Let's start with the base, and what's interesting about it is that its design is based on Amon Hen, a former outpost of Gondor. You might recall that Aragorn let Frodo go at this location to protect the remaining members of the Fellowship. Amon Hen is also the place where the Fellowship broke apart. The base itself is made entirely of plastic and looks fantastic. The sides featured beautiful stone effect decorations. On the surface we see stone slabs with some cracks. I especially love that in some places, between the cracks and along the edges, you can see grass pushing its way up. Running your fingers over the artificial grass, you will be amazed by such beautiful craftsmanship. I'm truly more than impressed. What also completely new to me is how the figure is supposed to be placed on this base. As you can see, something important seems to be missing. The pole that's supposed to hold a figure. In the past, I've only shown bases where the pole was already integrated in all sorts of variations, but there's nothing like that here. So how I am supposed to place my figure on this base? Inart has a completely unique concept here, and it's really cool. Let's turn the base over. On the underside we see a round opening which we turn slightly clockwise to open. Once we have done that, we see 2 plastic cubes underneath which, as you might have guessed, are 2 magnets. The cubes are guided on a plastic track, allowing you to align the magnets in any desired position, left, right, top and bottom. Once you have found your desired position, it will look like this. At the bottom edge, we also have the Aragorn plaque, which isn't separated but integrated into the stone effect base. Also beautiful. Normally, I hardly never discuss hands anymore, as I find them rather uninteresting. But I like to make an exception here, because there's one thing I find very interesting. Aragorn's 2 bloody hands. They are the result of the final battle against the Uruk-hai on the banks of the river Anduin, in which Boromir sadly lost his life shortly afterward. But before he died, Aragorn bent over Boromir one last time, promising to use all the strength he could to prevent the world of man from being destroyed. I find the bloody hands a very good detail, especially since it was one of the most important and beautiful scenes in the film for me. On the left hand, you can even see Barahir's ring on the index finger. 2 snakes with emerald eyes, one the rubber ring, the other crowned with golden flowers. One of the heirlooms of Isildur's house. Very beautiful. It seems no detail was overlooked, which in my opinion must have been very elaborate to produce, considering that the same ring had to be placed on each left hand. Let's talk about the bow. We will receive 2 versions, so to speak. One unstrung and one strung. The bow is brown and made of plastic. It's quite simple, meaning there is no decorations like elvish runes or anything like that. That doesn't mean it's any less deadly though. The string is made of very thin rubber, so I advise against any kind of experimentations with it. With the unstrung version, you can see that the string is wrapped around the bow. This version is only intended for storing it in the quiver. In this case, I'm quite relieved that we got 2 versions, otherwise we'd have constantly untied the string depending on what pose we were planning. Of course, we also get the matching arrows, 4 to precise. They're also made of plastic with a brown shaft and black fletching. And black tips too. What I really like is that the tips, even though they are plastic, are painted in such a way that they create a kind of metallic effect. We have the bow, we have the arrows, but something important is still missing. The quiver! And to my surprise, it's made of plastic. I was actually expecting faux leather. Only the strap that holds the bow and the chest strap are made of faux leather. To this day I'm still puzzling over what that little bit of fabric sticking out here is for. It will probably always remain a mystery. In any case, there's plenty of room on the right side to place our arrows. Once we have done that, we take our bow and carefully insert it first into the open loop, turn it, and then insert it into the lower opening of the quiver. And that's it! It should then look like this. Next, we have the bedroll that Aragorn carries with him at all times. After all, our heroes need to take a break now and then on their journey. The bedroll itself is made of a velvety soft material. What I really like is the weathering effect on the outside of the bedroll. The bedroll is held together with the 3 faux leather straps that are knotted at the sides. An additional black strap, also made of faux leather, is for slinging the whole thing over our shoulders, making it a bit more comfortable to carry. What also looks like a bedroll is actually a cloak, even if it doesn't seem that way at first glance, since the cloak has been folded several times and tied at both ends. Tied or not, the cloak is a real eye-catcher. Just look at the weathering effect on the cloak itself, or the rotten ropes that hold the cloak together. Awesome! I'm a big fan of things like this. Let's talk about Aragorn's sword. I'm only familiar with swords having their own names, for example Orcrist's Sing or the Foehammer Glamdring. But as far as I know, this one doesn't have a name. The sword is indeed made of metal and has a nice weight to it, I must say. The blade isn't sharp, but is pointed. You should be careful. The hilt is black and the pommel is silver. Of course, we also have a matching scabbard for our sword. It's made entirely of plastic in a very dark green. At the top and in the middle of the scabbard are 2 faux leather straps that attach to a belt. Here too you can see some very nice details, for example, the color differences of the straps, the transition from green to black, or the small gold buckles. The scabbard does have one more little surprise though. If we look at more closely, we notice a small pocket further up. This is where this small knife goes. Unlike the sword, the knife isn't made of metal, but entirely of plastic. Let's talk about the dagger. Aragorn received it as a gift from Lord Celeborn in Lothlorien. It is a truly beautiful weapon. The blade is curved and fine elvish lines and runes are visible on it. The hilt is brown and decorated with some gold. What's special about it is that the dagger is also made entirely of metal. The dagger also comes with a scabbard, and that too is quite beautiful. The scabbard is brown and also decorated with gold. Far down, a strap can be seen, allowing the dagger to be attached to a belt. Speaking of belts, I have one right here, ready to hand. It's brown and also made of faux leather, while the buckle is metal. Next to the buckle is a small rolled up brown cloth. In my opinion, the belt could have been a bit thicker, as it has to support some weight. After all, the sword and dagger are metal, plus the added weight of the 2 scabbards. Now we'll attach our sword and dagger scabbards to the belt. I briefly demonstrate how it works. If needed, everything is explained in the instructions. All you really have to do is attach the respective straps of the sword scabbard and the dagger scabbards to the belt. The only thing left to do is fasten the belt and tie a knot, and that's it! Now we have the pipe that Aragorn aka Strider used when he first appeared in the Prancing Pony. Back then, all you can see of Aragorn was a shadow lurking in the corner. Only his eyes glowed under his hood as soon as he puffed on the pipe. The pipe isn't made of wood but plastic, which I think is really cool because it's painted to look like there's a suit on the top. A nice little detail, but even cooler, and I hope you can see it, there's actually artificial pipe weed inside. Incredible! Next we have the Elven Cloak, which of course is essential. It was one of Galadriel's gifts to the Fellowship shortly before their departure from Lothlorien. The cloak is green and made of a very thin material. The hood is attached to the back. Some figures have cloaks with a wire integrated into the hood to allow some adjustments to the pose. This one, however, does not. Thankfully, I must say, I much prefer it this way as the hood looks more realistic. The cloak is held together with the leaf brooch, which symbolizes the friendship and bond between Lothlorien and the Fellowship. The brooch is shaped like a melon leaf, which comes from the melon tree. They are more commonly known as the leaf of Lorien. Finally, we come to something well guarded in Elrond's realm of Rivendell, waiting to be reforged. And from now on, it will take the name Andúril, Flame of the West. I'm speaking of perhaps the most famous and most feared sword in Middle-earth. May I present the Shards of Narsil, the blade that cut the ring from Sauron's hand. Don't worry, it's not sharp but is pointed. The blade is broken into 6 pieces. The sword, including the hilt, is once again made entirely of metal. My conclusion: Inart flexes its muscles with Aragorn. In other words, Inart truly demonstrate their expertise, and they are happy to let everyone know why. In my opinion, they are the Rolls Royce of figure makers. Almost everything about this figure is perfect. Every detail has been meticulously considered, whether it's the near perfect face, the clothing, the accessories, or the base. When you see and touch the figure, you can practically feel the passion that went into this project. Therefore, my rating is as follows. And what you can do with this figure, I'll show you now. What can I say? I think pictures say more than 1,000 words, and these are just a few many possibilities to stage the figure. So if you are a fan of The Lord of the Rings, then I can only sincerely recommend this wonderful, almost perfect implementation of the Aragorn as a figure in 1/6 scale. I think Inart is setting a big exclamation mark to the competition with Aragorn and shows that they are not at the top for nothing, and rightly so in my opinion. Thus our curiosity was quenched. At the same time, we have already to reach the end of today's review. I hope you like it. At this point usually comes the part when I announce the next figure, but I actually don't have a current figure in my repertoire yet. That means we have to be patient a little longer, but my wish list for the year 2026 is already made, which means that we have to be patient a little longer. Soon as something arrives, I will let you know, of course. But until then, it's call for the time being. If you look for choice, then Patrick's your choice. See you then. All we have to do is put your head back on and your your eyes pops out.
Call me Snake.